Business ownership has never been hotter, but how do you do it? That's where I come in. Allow me to guide you on your journey. Welcome to Ion Franchise. This episode sponsored by SEO Samba. Empower your franchise with predictable results and AI-driven marketing. Coming up on this episode, we're going to do something really special today. We're going to do a 1-minute brand dash. And spell ducks for the audience. It's not DUCKS. Financing. You guys do some in-house financing.
Absolutely. So another benefit, right, of a larger organization and frankly, some deeper pockets. It enables us to do things that maybe some other organizations, can't do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of Ion Franchising. I'm your host, Lance Graulich. We have a very special episode. Of course, you're thinking, Lance always says that. This is a really special episode. I have two guests, and they're both with BELFOR Franchise Group and from BELFOR Franchise Group. Doug Smith is the Executive VP, Senior Vice President of Franchise Development, and Dwayne Tanner is the Vice President of Franchise Development. So we also we have a special treat. Gentlemen, welcome to the show, by the way.
Thanks, Lance. We appreciate you being having us with you today.
My pleasure. So for those listening, whether it's your first episode or your 100th, we're going to do something really special today. We're going to do a 1-minute brand dash. It's 11 brands. We're going to talk about that, have the guys do a speed round and talk about these brands just for a minute each, little highlights. We're going to get to that in a minute. Gentlemen, how'd you get into the world of franchising in the first place?
Well, I guess I'll start because I'm a little bit of a dinosaur in this end. I actually got in the world back in 1992. I was working with IBM at the time and found just a beautiful opportunity with Taco Bell. Quick story, as being the first to graduate from college in my family as a boy, working at IBM, wearing my blue suit, my red tie every single day, just didn't fit, but told my grandmother was moving on to do something different and to go work with Taco Bell. And after she cried for hours, she realized that not everything involved operating a restaurant, that there was this thing called franchising. So 32 years later, still out here doing it, enjoying the franchising world.
That's amazing. I'm glad you shared that story. That's awesome. Doug, how about you?
Ironically, in our earlier conversation with you, Lance, you have a large food service background, right, in the space, both in and out of franchising, as Dwayne just mentioned, he does as well. I started not on the franchisor side of things, but on the franchisee side of things back in the late 80s, actually. So kind of dating ourselves here as well. But worked for a company that had several franchise concepts. Perkins Family Restaurants,
of course,
Place for Ribs, Chili's, as well as a couple of independent restaurants. So I got my start working in the restaurant field as a franchisee or managing franchisees' restaurants. So had spent several years there, kind of sidetracked and got into kind of restaurant equipment sales, things like that. So still in the restaurant space, but more on the sales side of things. Yep. And then full circle came back around, and kind of married the two things and realized, as everybody knows, right? I love the restaurant space. It's a tough space, right? It's a tough space. If COVID didn't show us anything, it certainly showed us how tough of a space restaurant operations can be. So, ended up in the franchisor side of things and largely, obviously, with home services, which we really, really enjoy.
So, gentlemen, tell the audience, what is BELFOR Franchise Group? Share a little bit about that.
So BELFOR Franchise Group is a division of BELFOR Property Restoration, kind of to set the table. So BELFOR Property Restoration is the world's largest property restoration company. So it's got 13,000 employees. It's in about 40 different countries, multi-billion-dollar company. And they own BELFOR Franchise Group. So some of our ownership as part of BELFOR Property Restoration, right, they're on large jobs in water and fire and, catastrophic events, hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that, right? And they obviously do a lot of the work themselves, but they also subcontract a lot of work. Let's say duct cleaning, right, for example, and, mold mitigation, that type of thing. They need dumpsters on site, right? They need storage, things like that. So they were subcontracting a lot of businesses. And kind of a light bulb moment was, what if we got into, providing some of these services within our own family, if you will, and they started looking at some franchise opportunities and realized that they could scale it probably quicker, in the franchising world than they could, doing it independently. So that got them into back in around 2008-ish, got with our first brand, Ducks, which they learned about during Hurricane Katrina.
And spell ducks for the audience. It's not DUCKS.
It is not. It is DUCTZ. And we have a couple of brands like that, as you may learn going through this. But so the nice thing about, not only having, upwards of 11, 12 brands today in the franchise group, the ownership group being such a large corporation, obviously we've got a lot of resources, right? So they've invested a lot in the franchise group. We've got 200 or 300 people that actually work for the restaurant group in support of our 11 brands. And that just, we have brands that have been around for 46, 47 years. We have brands that have been around an hour and a half, and everywhere in between. So, the nice thing is, and, when you're thinking about one of our newer brands, for example, as opposed to a new brand right off the street, they just started from scratch. They got 4 employees on the franchisor level, what have you. Our new brands look just like that, except they've got 200 or 300 people behind it, right? You're getting the full breadth of the support from, the franchise sales organization, from the onboarding organization, the training, the coaching, the marketing, right? You're getting the BELFOR Franchise Group experience, not just a little mama. So you get the best of both worlds. You can get an exciting new concept with all the support.
Yeah, and we were all talking about that before we went on air, so to speak, that I've learned in franchising that support, marketing, and obviously the actual system and blueprint that's provided to franchisees are 3 of the most valuable components. And, obviously you just laid out the perfect case on the support side. How do you guys as a group with all of these brands, what are the advantages in getting into this large company? I mean, you obviously have the support, but like with marketing, I'm assuming there's a lot of cross marketing. There's a lot of benefits if you have franchisees already in certain markets as a new franchisee comes in. But describe marketing a little bit. Is it all in-house? You have an agency?
Yeah, so from a marketing perspective, we do have in-house people that really help to manage our different brands. The beautiful piece of it is they're able to share best practices across those brands to really maximize the possible support. We do also have some resources we bring in the outside to really bolster those efforts as well. But I think one of the big pieces and keys to our being successful is the ability to share those ideas across the platform, to leverage the 14 some odd brands that we have here within the system and make sure that, there's the cross marketing possibilities, right? There's a best practices possibilities. There's so much that can be gained from just the conversation that we have with our franchisees and their advisory councils as well as internally.
Yeah, I interviewed one of your franchisees not too long ago on a new series I'm going to launch called Franchise Envy, where I'm talking to successful, happy franchisees. And he had 1-800 water damage, and I think it was Blue Kangaroo Packouts, which logically, we're going to talk about those brands in a few moments, but they work hand in hand. If you have a restoration event, if you will, you probably need some packing out type help most of the time, right?
Absolutely.
So I do love how they work together. Let me ask, when it comes to selecting a franchise, a lot of people come to me as a franchise broker and say, Lance, but I don't have experience in that. That sounds awful. I know nothing about that. Now, I'll tell you how I answer initially. Number one, most brands, the large majority, you don't need any industry experience. They just need a smart person that's going to pay attention. There are some businesses we know that are more sales heavy than others, and it's helpful if you have a sales background, but in a lot of cases, you can hire a salesperson, etc. But at the end of the day, it's those boring, unsexy, recession-proof businesses that make money. So guess what, guys? I say to my clientele, don't you want the freedom to do what you want to do when you want to do it? And don't you want the ability to make more money than you're making right now and build generational wealth? And the answer is yes. But what is your answer to that?
Part of it is what you just said. And part of it's shifting, I think, generationally speaking, right? You've got everybody from, the baby boom generation all the way down to the new Gen Zs, right? And coming up, and I'm not even sure what letter we go to after Gen Z comes out of the gate here. But, we just recently, we're discussing those different buckets, right? I think probably a lot of our parents, right, that are in that baby boom generation, that was the era of you get out of school, you go get a job, you work there for 35, 40 years, you get a gold watch and a pension, and you sail off into the sunset, right? And, there was an entrepreneurial spirit. The country was kind of built on that, but I think the majority of people were the other way, right? You got a good job and you kind of stayed there. And as you go down through Gen X and Gen Z and millennials and so forth, I think you'll see that the Gen Z, the youngest of the group here, are coming up with a much higher entrepreneurial spirit, right? That's what they want to talk about. You just mentioned that financial freedom, building generational wealth, flexibility for the family, right? Those are the types of things I think people coming up are seeing and wanting to engage more with than maybe generations past.
Yeah.
So, and you hit on some of the hot buttons right there.
Yeah.
Having control over your life, right? It all boils down to having control over your life, right? It's your business. You can make it as much or as little as you want, right? I mean, there is accountability that comes with that, right? It doesn't happen automatically, but having the opportunity to control your destiny, is pretty incredible. And doing it with those non-sexy brands in some cases. We'll get into it later, but you know what? I think a bright red shiny dumpster with a porta potty attached to it, that's pretty sexy when you're talking about the waste management space,
Sexy.
Sexy's all relative, I guess, is what you're saying, But
money and freedom are sexy.
Absolutely.
You heard it here.
So we talk a lot about the points you just talked about, and and depending on that kind of generational look at things, we might, talk about different hot buttons, but overall, that's what's really about, right? That's what
guys, I tell everybody the same story about a good buddy of mine that left the corporate world. And by the way, so many people are jumping into entrepreneurship and franchise ownership much, much younger these days. It's not a 50-year-old guy anymore. It's men, it's women, and they're starting much younger. I'm talking to more people in their 20s and 30s about franchise ownership than ever before. But a buddy of mine ended up into franchise hair salons. And when he was presented the idea, he was mad. He couldn't figure out why anybody would show him a hair salon because he's bald and doesn't know how to cut hair. So that sums up what we're about to talk about. Gentlemen, the brand dash now begins. First brand, Doug, 1-800-water damage.
All right. Luckily, that one sounds just like what it is. It's water damage, property restoration. So think, water, fire, smoke, things of that nature, potentially hurricanes, tornadoes. It's in that space. It's been around as part of BELFOR Franchise Group since about 2015, was established a few years prior to that. We have 178 units currently across the country. It's in that sweet spot of investment range. You can get in anywhere from about $70,000 up to about $300,000. Our top quarter of the system is doing a little over $2 million annually in revenue. So it's a good margin business. It's also recession resistant, probably as close to recession proof as you can get, because you're always going to have weather. You're always going to have toilets overflowing. Etc. So it's a business that isn't dictated by the economy.
Blue Kangaroo Packouts. Doug.
Love this concept. Very much a niche product, also in the restoration space. What's unique about this is maybe you don't want to work 24/7. The water damage, fire damage can be any day of the week, anytime. The Blue Kangaroo Packouts is the contents restoration space of that. So this is coming in, packing out all the contents of the home when you have an event, taking them back, cleaning, restoring them, storing them in general, and then packing them back into the home or business when that event has been fully mitigated. So more of a Monday through Friday type of positioning in the restoration space. So that's kind of unique. Hot brand for us. Started them in 2019. We were already up to about 114 units with a top 25% of that system approaching $1 million in annualized revenue. Again, a little bit, you can get into it for call it about 240,000, upwards of 500,000, all depending on your, the size of your warehouse and, the size of the business you want to start with. So again, it's the water restoration space, but a little bit more manageable.
Love it. Dwayne, let's talk about Junk Co.
All right, so Junko, much like its name, it's all about junk removal. It's a brand that we just recently purchased. Was actually founded in 2020 by Blake Gordon. We acquired the concept, gosh, it's probably about 3 months ago. So very, very new to the franchising world. We have one location that's based out of Louisville, Kentucky, and is going well there. The top, I guess, a top quartile of franchisees. Well, we got the one, right? So that unit is doing about $900,000 per year and making some things happen. It's going to cost you between $200,000 and $300,000 to get into the business. And really, the thing that makes this thing sexy, and trash, by the way, is in fact sexy, is around the fact that we also do demolition, and that's about 30% of our work. Imagine this being partnered with all of our other BELFOR Franchise Group brands, bringing Junk Co to the mix with others like Redbox Plus makes a perfect scenario for us.
Awesome. Thank you. Ducks. Doug, talk about Ducks.
All right, so Ducks with a Z. So it's also in the partly in the restoration space. So you'll get a lot of work from that space, but think air duct cleaning, both commercially and residential wise. So I think maybe people weren't as familiar with the whole concept of indoor air quality, but I think during the pandemic, if they weren't familiar with it, they certainly got familiar with it during that time frame. So it was actually a business that did very well, fortunately or unfortunately, right during COVID and the pandemic. But I think a lot of people were turned on to that. It was actually our first franchise brand within the BELFOR Franchise Group back in 2008 or so. We've got about 76 units across the country right now. Pretty affordable to get into, somewhere in the $170,000 to $200,000 range for investment. Top 25% of that group is doing about $1.3 million annually. So again, a great revenue stream and good margin business. Also ties in nicely with a lot of our other BELFOR Franchise Group brands.
Fabulous. Enhance wood finishing or refinishing with Mr. Dwayne.
Yes, Enhance. It's all about this home remodeling space, right? I think with people spending more and more time in their homes, they realize the importance of having that space feel very comfortable to them and with them. It was a brand that was founded back in 2003, acquired by the BELFOR Franchise Group in 2018. We have about 300 plus units here in the US and in Canada. It's been voted one of the top global franchises by Entrepreneur Magazine. Really cool brand. The top 25% of the franchisees doing just about $1.4 million in sales. And the cool part is the investment on that is just between $100,000 and $150,000 in sales. The thing that makes Enhance so dang special is that we have our own proprietary products that we use on this, and we do cabinet refinishing for many people around the country.
Awesome. Doug, let's talk about Hoods with a Z.
Hoods also with a Z. Commercial hood cleaning franchise. So think restaurants, right? We talked a little bit earlier about restaurants. Anybody who's got kitchen equipment and has a air exhaust system, they need to be cleaned. The niche thing about this business, it's regulatorily speaking required. If you own a restaurant, as you know, Lance,
Yes.
and you have hoods in your kitchen, you are required by the fire marshals to have those cleaned, typically quarterly. Changes a little bit by jurisdiction, but so it's a service that has to be done. And there aren't a lot of national players in that. We've got about 135 units across the country, so probably the largest network of a national hood cleaning company. Top 25% doing over $3 million in annualized revenue. So get in between 180,000, 230,000. It's that not sexy business. It's dirty, but it makes great money.
Yeah, it does.
Dirty and greasy, the way we like it. All right, Dwayne, let's talk about Safer Home Services.
Yes, sir. So Safer Home Services in the pest control space, making homes safer around the country for their guests. Founded in 2014 by us down in Florida. In 2023, we acquired this wonderful concept. I have one company operation down in Tampa that's killing it, doing about 3.1 million in sales. A couple of franchisees in and around the Atlanta area, and we're looking to expand around the country. The world becomes our oyster with this brand. We're all about making those bugs die in those homes through safer home services, baby. We're good at it.
Dead bugs or good bugs? Good job.
Lord.
All right. Red Box Plus and plus dumpsters. So Doug, talk about that one. Back
Love
to trash.
Red Box Plus dumpsters. All right. Sexy. I think they are sexy. They're patented. They are a dumpster porta potty combo unit. So if you go by any construction site, what are you going to typically see? You're going to see dumpsters on site. You're going to see porta potties on site. This combines the two concepts, makes it a little bit easier for the contractors, the homeowners, etc. So the nice thing is kids can't tip over the outhouses on Halloween night. So anyway, we acquired them back in 2021. We have about just under 300 units today, with the top quartile doing about $1.5 million in annualized revenue. So a little bit more on the higher investment level because you are buying an inventory, heavy brand. So trucks, dumpsters, things like that. So between 600,000 and 900,000 typically starting investment can go up from there. But really cool concept, bright red shiny dumpsters and great looking trucks. And if you're interested in waste management, that's the brand to be in.
Awesome. Dwayne, let's talk about the Patch Boys.
All right, the Patch Boys. Patch Boys in the home repair segment, if you will. This brand has been voted by Entrepreneur Magazine as one of the top brands for under $100,000, one of the top home-based brands, and seen growth over 200% over the last 3 years. It was acquired by us in 2018, and we have about 300 or so franchises around the country now. Top quartile, those franchisees on an investment of around $90,000 or so are doing over $550,000. Everybody pokes holes in walls. Everyone has some instance with this. And Patch Boys is a very professional way of making little boys who bump their heads through walls or make little accidents, making their mistakes money and profit for our franchisees. But a wonderful concept under the leadership of Ted Spears, and we're going to see massive growth continue with the brand.
Fabulous. Z Plumbers, Doug, bring us home with the last one.
All right, Z Plumbers. Probably don't need a lot of explanation here. It's a plumbing franchise. So again, in that category of being recession resistant, I don't know about everyone else out there, but if you're in an apartment, a home, etc., and you have a plumbing issue, you're going to call a plumber. Everyone's toilets overflow and tubs and roofs leak and you name it, right? Pipes burst. So it does fall in that category of a much needed service. Also, right, in the trades. A lot of people, there's a big swing right now with college getting so unaffordable, a big push for people going back into the trades. So a great opportunity here. We acquired them back in 2019, got about 39 units right now. So still one of kind of our emerging brands. Top of that heap are doing over $1 million annualized revenue. It's in that mid-range, requiring investment of, between $230,000 and $400,000, call it. But obviously, anybody knows anything about, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, things like that, it's a required service. It's not like everyone's got a toilet. Everyone needs a plumber.
Great job. We did it. The brand dash is complete. Let's talk about a couple other things, gentlemen. The process, the franchise development process. How does that work? Talk about the validation process. Talk about in-house financing, perhaps.
Yeah, so the process, I really think it's a two-way process, right? We're getting to know our candidates, and our candidates really get to know about our brands and our culture here. So it really starts off with education, right? And a big piece of our education is found in our franchise disclosure documents, something that can be seen as very, very, a little scary to some new folks. It really explains a lot about the roles of the franchisee and the franchisor in that process. So after we get to know them a bit, we walk them through that franchise disclosure document. But we believe that one of the most important parts, or two most important parts of the process, are really going to be around validation, right? Having our franchise candidates, right, really spend time with existing franchisees so they better understand our culture, better understand the support that we provide for our franchisees and the expectations, by the way, that we also have for our franchisees in terms of operations. After that time, we want to spend time with them too, really to get to know them better. So we have what's termed Meet the Team Days at our corporate offices in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And that's really a chance for them to ask those final questions. And for us, really, to sit down and make sure that this relationship is going to work and be effective for both the franchise or us and that franchisee who's going to invest a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of energies in terms of building their business with our support and structure.
Love it.
So that's
You
typically
know,
the process.
when it comes to your top performing franchisees, what do they all have in common?
So within our brands, which are probably not unique, in far as some of the skill sets, but one of the things we really preach as a differentiator is customer service. So working with people, we need people that are comfortable going into people's homes. We're a home service company largely, so your employees, they're going into people's homes. They're the sanctuaries, right, of every family. So one, we want to make sure that the people are comfortable doing that, right? And you're comfortable talking to people. You mentioned earlier, not necessarily needing sales or marketing experience, but we do look to see if there is a skill in our candidates that kind of aligns with that. It could be just very comfortable talking to people, right?
Yeah.
But anything that could be kind of perceived as a sales marketing kind of angle, really helpful. And we want people that are generally going to care about their customers and their community. We want them actively involved in the community, working with charitable organizations. We want them focused on customer service, answering the phone on the first ring, second, not letting. So we really try to dig in and find if your personality is going to match up with that. You are a reflection of us as a franchisee. You're a reflection of BELFOR Franchise Group, and by and large, in BELFOR Property Restoration overall. Our CEO lives by the credo of, do the right thing even when no one's looking. I know people have heard that before, but he really does push that from the top down. And we look for people that are gonna kind of live that, right? So yeah, that's kind of what we look for.
Great. So financing, you guys do some in-house financing.
Absolutely. So another benefit, right, of a larger organization and frankly, some deeper pockets, it enables us to do things that maybe some other organizations, can't do. So for most of our brands, we do internal financing for a large portion of the initial franchise fee. And in some of the brands, we even do financing on equipment, part of the equipment packaging as well. So it all depends on the brand, but we do offer that. We're pretty flexible. We're willing to negotiate and kind of dig in there and figure out what we need to do to get the deal done. That makes the most sense for both us and the candidate coming into the system.
I love it because, as you gentlemen are aware, most brands, the large majority, are not doing any type of financing. So it's an incredible benefit, and that's awesome that you do that. Semi-absentee ownership, meaning you keep your day job, you work part-time in the business, hire a GM or manager to run it, versus being a full-time owner. Talk a little bit about that and if that's possible in some of your brands.
I don't want to put them all in one bucket, right? We've got 11, 12 brands out there, and I don't want to say that they all look exactly the same, right? That one thing works for one and it works for all of them, right? So it really is brand dependent to some extent, but and it's also an evolution. We really look for people who are going to be involved in the business coming out of the gates, right? That can look a little bit different, but you've got to know what you've got, right? And I would think if you're going to spend anywhere from $100,000 up to $1 million or somewhere in between, that you're going to want to understand the day-to-day workings of your business, right? You need to know what you're looking at, right? Myself, Dwayne, we were in the restaurant business. Boy, you better know the tricks that bartenders use to do certain things behind the bar, et cetera. So you better know.
You're going to have silent partners otherwise.
You have, yes.
Exactly, right? So you really need to understand this. And we feel, right, we want the owners to come to training first and foremost, right? And we want you to get to know your business coaches so that they can reach out to you, right, to talk about the business and what's going on in your business. Doesn't mean you can't be semi-absentee or even eventually absentee. We'd prefer absentee comes down the road when you've really got things humming along. Semi-absentee, that can work for most of our brands, especially if you have a general manager, operations manager, somebody that's going to watch over that day-to-day full-time, right? And we also, in most cases, we want to meet them too. As part of the onboarding process, we want to meet them. We want to know that just because you have all the qualities we're looking for in a franchisee, we want to know that general manager, that operations manager, that they have the same type of qualities, right? Because if they don't align, it's not going to be good for the franchisee either, right? So we do look for that.
Yeah, franchise owners still need to build their own company culture, and you have to be involved to a degree to transfer what you want in a business to your team. You guys are awesome. So Dwayne, let's wrap up. Final thoughts, final words of wisdom for the listeners.
Wow, that's bold. I'd say that this notion of franchising, right? First off, the notion of business ownership, it's becoming so I call it mainstream. It's accepted. You know, it's where the generations are heading now. Franchising is such a cool route to get there, right? It's almost like putting little guardrails, if you will, on your journeys towards entrepreneurship. Let someone else, being the franchisor, have made those mistakes and be able to apply those to your own business as you start your franchise or your business. But the home services space, you know, having started in food service, home services is such a wonderful piece of business. There's so much of the opportunity to really jump in at lower cost, right, and do great things to scale a business.
So much easier than food service, where food disappears, it spoils, staff is so difficult. Yeah,
it is, absolutely.
Thank you very much for that, Dwayne.
Yeah.
Doug, final words from you, words of wisdom, tips for those listening.
You know, we touched on it earlier, BELFOR Franchise Group, right? You've got a family of brands, and it really is a family. And we touched on marketing and kind of, you know, we get economies of scale, right? We talked about when you have this many brands, when you're working with outside vendors, and that could be anything from, you know, supplying uniforms to doing your digital marketing, to chemical purchase, whatever that is, right? When you have a company like ours, right, you get economies of scale. We can negotiate a lot of deals you probably wouldn't be able to negotiate, you know, on your own out there. And one of the things we talked about, or briefly touched on in marketing was, one of the things we started a couple of years back now is when we're doing validation, we want our candidates not only to talk to, let's say they're coming in for 1-800 water damage. We're not only going to send them to some of our 1-800 water damage franchisees, we're going to look at our franchisees in their area. Let's say it's Dallas, Texas. We're going to tee them up with our Red Box franchisee. We're going to tee them up with our Ducks franchisee. We're going to tee them up with our BKP, Blue Kangaroo franchisee. And we want them to talk to those other businesses, both about the BELFOR Franchise Group experience, service, coaching, marketing, but we also want them to develop almost a little mini chamber of commerce, little mini B&I group, and start working with all their sister brands and how they can help each other out. So that's another benefit that we really see our candidates finding value in.
That's awesome. Collaboration is a powerful piece of franchising, and people forget when you join a franchise and you pay that franchise fee, it's essentially like joining a mastermind. So, gentlemen, Dwayne and Mr. Doug, welcome, or Dwayne and Doug, thank you for being here. BELFOR Franchise Group. You guys,
Lance, we really appreciate your time today. We enjoyed it and hope that we'd get to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you.
If you're ready to talk about franchise opportunities, hit the link below to schedule a call. My services are free, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.